And now, fast forward to 2025, the whole world, in light of October 7, 2023, which is crazy to me, is saying, okay, Palestinian people need their state. And to me, it's absolutely crazy. Correct me if I'm wrong, and tell me what you think about. I mean, if the Palestinians get their state, doesn't that mean that basically we're rewarding murder and terrorism?
That's absolutely.
What am I missing?
No, that's absolutely right.
Shalom, everybody. Olivier with Shalom and Messiah, and today I have a guest. Well, I can't surprise you because you already see him on the screen. It's Pete Garcia. I've never had him on the show. I'm excited. We're going to be talking about a topic that we both think is pretty important, and it's about what's going on with the state of quote-unquote Palestine. So before I start, I want to remind you to subscribe to our channel, to also follow us on Telegram. I post a lot on Telegram on a daily basis, and you get the QR code on the screen right now that you can scan. And we thank you for your support. We thank you for connecting with us at shalomandmessiah.com, and it really makes a difference. So stay connected, don't miss any of the videos, and share with your friends. Because of the times we live in, this is absolutely necessary that more people would be exposed to the truth, because this is becoming a rarity. So, Pete Garcia, I know you, Pete, as a prophecy teacher. We've been, you and I have been at conferences together, various conferences, Bible prophecy conferences. I know you as a prophecy, a Bible teacher, very thorough. You just showed me a chart of yours that you worked on. It was like it unfolded. It didn't fit on my desk. So it's one of those charts.
Yeah.
But give us a little bit of your background, because you have an interesting background. So military background, is that what it is?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Olivier, it's an honor to be here. I've loved your work over the years, and like you said, we haven't we've been at conferences together. We really haven't connected. No. So I think this is all in the timing of the Lord, that He's orchestrated all these things to such a time as this, I guess. And but yeah, I 22-year military background. I was retired out of the Army. I was a commissioned officer, aviator. I flew medevac for most of that time. The UH-60 Blackhawks, deployments to Korea, near the DMZ, Iraq, Afghanistan twice, Saudi Arabia. I was stationed in Riyadh for a year. So I've been in the Middle East for quite a few times. Been to Israel once, and that was an interesting story, just getting there. You know, to go through Jordan and the Allenby Gate and all that. It was pretty scary at times, but it was a good experience. I love the land of Israel, love the Jewish people, and it's just I feel blessed to be here in this time. Along with you and our peers that are proclaiming the truth of the times we live in, like the sons of Issachar. Now we have the information. What do we do with it? How are we supposed to use that? So I was never a writer. I was never a teacher. I wasn't even that good of a student. And God, pulled me out of my own cesspool of my own life and my own problems and issues in 2007. And He set me on this trajectory, and that's where I've been ever since.
Yeah, I was never a writer. When I'm an artist by trade. I paint and I draw, and I started writing in I think in like 2000. I started writing, and I've got I got 7 books. How many books do you have?
Gosh, somewhere between 5 and 8.
Between 5 and 8. Okay, so there's 3 books that you're not sure about.
Well, I've published a bunch of my own. I've done a few with Terry James that were published through a publisher, and so right. I think I did 3 with him, and then I think I've done 5 or 6 on my own, and then I've done a bunch of short stories and hundreds of articles. So.
Are your books on Amazon?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll put the link in the description. Quickly, what's the best way for people to connect with you?
Well, if the website's rev310.net, and that's where it's got all my contact info. But if people are more inclined to go to YouTube, just look me up on YouTube, Rev310 or Pete Garcia, And one of those will take you to me.
REV
REV 310. Yep.
Rev 310, as in Revelation 310?
As in Revelation 310.
Okay. Do you like the book Revelation?
I do. It's my favorite book to study through, and I've taught through it once. And that was a learning experience for myself. I mean, you kind of learn things every time you go through it. You see things from a different perspective. So,
have you ever read the book by Fruchtenbaum, Footsteps of the Messiah?
I have read through most of it. Yeah, it's a pretty weighty book, but definitely had that on my shelf for a number of years.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite commentary on Revelation. So the topic I wanted to discuss today in this episode, I wanted to talk about, literally, we're recording this, and it's probably going to post a few days later, but we're recording this as the UN is going through their 80th General Assembly, starting in 1945 to replace the League of Nations. And so now they're going through their 80th General Assembly in New York as we speak. And basically, it's more than a handful, a large number of countries, and we're not talking about small countries. There are smaller countries that just joined even today, like Malta, I think Luxembourg, but big countries like Australia, UK, France. I'm ashamed of being from France at this point. France, Canada, I think Portugal as well, and then you keep adding on and on and on. As of a week ago or so, 151 countries had recognized the state of Palestine out of 193. It's probably closer to 160 now, maybe even 165. What's your first reaction when you see all these countries flocking to this desire to recognize the state of Palestine, especially in light of the events that took place out of the Gaza Strip on October 7, 2023? What's your first reaction when you hear this?
I think it's this: the world is being given over to a debased and deluded mind where, supporting we're looking at the major issues of the day, none of them are based in reality. Whether you're talking about the climate hoax propaganda that's going on, and I think Donald Trump did an amazing job of laying out the issues of the sky that's amorphous, and it just, you can have all these strict regulations in this country, but the pollution goes up in the air and then it travels over to the next country, that doesn't have to follow any rules, or vice versa, And the same thing with the trans movement. It's not based in reality. They're pushing these political agendas, and then the other big issue that we're facing in the world today is obviously this ludicrous idea that if we carve up this tiny little sliver of land in a sea of green Islamic nations that cover billions of square miles, that somehow that's going to bring peace to the land. And so I think all three of those issues Trump masterfully kind of addressed point blank. And I echo that sentiment. And the fact that the UN now it's in its 80th session just proves how far it's fallen from the original intent that was founded with.
I agree. And the thing with this, like you said, this little sliver of land, if we give away more land or if we split the land, then maybe we'll have peace in the Middle East. Well, I would say, they've been talking about this since 1948, but in 2025, we actually have a case study that we can look at with results. It's the Gaza Strip. In 2005, that piece of land was given the quote-unquote Palestinian, and I don't like that word, and we'll get into that in a minute, but the quote-unquote Palestinians were given authority over the Gaza Strip, and I think within a year or two, the Palestinian Authority lost against Hamas, and Hamas took over. But for 20 years now, this little piece of land within Israel, which is part of Israel, which is part of the Jewish land, under Ariel Sharon, basically all the Jews that lived in that area were kicked out, and it was given to the Palestinians so they could have their own little place. They could build it up. They could build an economy. They could build an infrastructure. And what happened is that almost overnight, they destroyed everything that the Jews left, the greenhouses, the buildings, the factories that could have been picked up and fitted for their needs, but they were already there. And instead, they started building what ended up being today what we know as 300 miles of tunnels.
Yeah. And that's part of the problem too, is that that land is never going to be livable again with how much the tunnels have been put underneath the infrastructure weakened. It's like a pillar. You take a pillar and you start poking holes through it. Eventually, that pillar is not going to support the weight above it. So many tunnels that had to be destroyed because they'd been weaponized against Israel. And then that weakens the structure there underneath the ground. And then all of the destruction, the rubble on top of it. I've just called it a rubble farm. I mean, it's basically pulverized, but there's so many landmines and unexploded ordnances and all kinds of just tripwires and dangers that it would take a good 10, 15 years to kind of clear out that land and make it safe to live in again.
So I never thought about, I know those tunnels are an issue, but I never thought about this, this Swiss cheese effect under the ground. But that would make it, even without the IEDs and the bombs and everything, it would not be safe then.
No.
So how do we, do they have to fill them with concrete?
Yeah, they're going to have to go in subterranean and start basically building underneath the ground, subterranean construction, just to be able to make the land on top supportable. And again, it's not like one or two tunnels. I mean, that place is just crisscrossed in like a spider web of tunnels there. And when you start taking those out through explosives and ordinances, which they had to do, what's going to happen is that's going to just weaken the land above it. So I think that's probably one of the biggest challenges they're going to face there is how do we... Because you could build something on top and you start digging down for like power or water or anything like that, and then you hit these pockets of just open areas, and boom, that whole thing collapses, and you're gonna have sinkholes everywhere. So, I think that's a big challenge. The biggest challenge for them in the future going forward is terms of making that, into a Gaza resort place, that's international resort, whatever Trump was talking about. Whatever they want to do, they're going to have to start building subterranean first and work their way up to kind of secure the land. But that's a long process.
Yeah, it's going to be a long process. Yeah, but first they have to get rid of Hamas, which I think they're on their way to doing that. Now, here we are talking about Palestine, the Palestinians, recognition of the Palestinian state. You've heard me on this channel before, but I want to touch on it a little bit. The word Palestine, now personally, when I speak at conferences, I get the audience to kind of, their jaw drops a little bit because I say, I have no problem calling Israel Palestine. And then I stop on purpose. And, and I'm at like a pro-Israel conference. And they go like,
pause for effect. Yeah.
Yeah, pause for effect. And then I go until 1948.
Yeah.
Because until 1948, really until 1960-ish, to be honest, it was the name of a piece of land. Mm-hmm. Okay, a piece of it was territory. A geographical territory, and they were at that time Palestinian Arabs and Palestinian Jews.
Yep.
That's what they had, and Palestine was simply the name of a piece of land. And going back to the Bar Kokhba revolt in 135, when Emperor Adrian changed the name of Israel to Palestina and Israel to Palestina and Jerusalem to Aelia Capitolina to humiliate the Jews and to basically de-Judaize the region. And it continues. I mean, right now we have this big movement called Christian Palestinianism that really aims at de-Judaizing everything, de-Judaizing the temple, de-Judaizing Jesus. I mean, it's if everything that has a shred of Jewish history, let's erase it so we can make it all Palestinian. That's what they're pushing. And of course, it's more and more accepted because people don't have, they don't study, they don't have the truth. They buy what they think is the social justice agenda. They go like, well, this is the poor Palestinian, they've been kicked out, occupied, and so people they just don't know the truth. And it's been going for 60, 70 years now. And so this word Palestine, I don't have a problem until 1948. After that, or 1960, after that, it becomes a politically charged word, and the Palestinians are, like displaced people, the occupied territory, all those words I don't like. I did recently a show where I showed a dictionary, and actually that little dictionary thing went viral because people are hungry for the truth. So I wanted to show you something, Pete, because I think it's really cool. I have about 3 or 4 of those. They're not really expensive. You can get them. I got them. I think I got them online. It's a Palestine coin, a British Mandate Palestine. Now, you people will not be able to see anything on the screen, but don't worry. In a minute, I will show you. I will blow it up on the screen for you. But this coin has 3 words: Philistine, Palestine, and Palestina in Hebrew. And as you see on your screen right now, in the red circle, there are 2 Hebrew letters. And the 2 Hebrew letters are Aleph and Yod. It goes from right to left. And Aleph and Yod are the initials for Eretz Yisrael, land of Israel. So this is a coin from 1927. They go back to, the late 10s, early 20s, and all the way to the 40s. The one I have is 1927. I have several different dates. And here we have a coin that says Palestine on it. And then, to be sure, next to the word Palestine in Hebrew, Palestina, it says in parentheses, it's called Palestina, but let's make sure you guys understand, we are Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel. You can't, this is not made up. This is part of history.
Yeah.
It's so, and it's 21 years before Israel was reborn as a modern nation. So you have that coin that proves that Palestine back then was a name of a piece of land, and it became a political movement, a political agenda, and the people are created. What do Palestinians speak? Arabic.
Arabic.
What kind of food do they eat?
Arabic food.
What's their customs and traditions?
Arabic.
Is there such a thing as a Palestinian fill in the blank? No.
Nope.
And yet the world is not, it doesn't agree with that. It started in the 60s with Yasser Arafat, which really was a plant from the USSR to start building this agenda. And patiently, they built the agenda, the Palestinian agenda, which today is no longer discussed or argued. It's accepted. And now, fast forward to 2025, the whole world, in light of October 7, 2023, which is crazy to me, is saying, okay, Palestinian people need their state. And to me, it's absolutely it's absolutely crazy because, correct me if I'm wrong, and tell me what you think about. If the Palestinians get their state, doesn't that mean that basically we're rewarding murder and terrorism?
That's absolutely.
What am I missing?
No, that's absolutely right. The whole Palestine, the whole name Palestine comes from Hadrian and Emperor Hadrian, the Roman emperor, who squashed the Bar Kokhba revolt between 135. Yeah, somewhere around 135. And so he renamed the area to erase the Jewish memory there. He salted the land so nothing would grow. He forbade Jews from being able to come back into the land. I think they were allowed once a year to be able to come back on one day. And so that land, that name just was the name of the territory for the next 20 centuries. And so by the time that the Ottoman Empire was in its decline and joined with the Austro-Hungarian Empire and the Germans in World War I, they joined the losing side. At the end of that, at the conclusion of that war, they lost all that territory they controlled. And so that was carved up by the British and the French. We know that the original Palestinian state is what we call the state of Jordan now. And that was the land that was given to the Arabs. And they weren't content with that. And so they, carved out a huge chunk of the middle of the heartland of what we call Judea and Samaria. And that's what's, really been in contention ever since, is just trying to drive the Jewish people into the sea. And no political bargaining, no peace deals, no economic incentives, nothing is going to work, because this hatred for them is not something natural. It's something supernatural. It's Luciferian. It's demonic. It's satanic, because
Agreed.
Satan realizes that as long as the Jews are alive in the world, Bible prophecy can still continue forward, and his fate is sealed, and he does not want to go to the lake of fire. He wants to do everything he can, which is why we are seeing this anti-Semitism ramped up to the degree that it is. I mean, it's on steroids now, but it's been on steroids for centuries.
Yeah, it hasn't stopped. It's been swept on the carpet, for a little while. Probably from the late 40s until the early 60s. It was going to get, right after the Holocaust. It was so raw that people kind of, it went taboo. The people didn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And they thought when Israel got Eichmann from South America and put him on trial in the 60s, and then when the Catholic Church, was it 1965 or 62, when the Vatican II, when they said finally after 1960 years, well, the Jews cannot be held responsible for killing Christ anymore. After 1965 years.
Like they have the authority to do that.
Right, exactly. And so the world community and the Jewish community thought, okay, maybe anti-Semitism has been conquered, has been eradicated, but no, it was just being repackaged.
But you see what happened though. Right after World War II, anti-Semitism became verboten. So what does the new anger shift over to? Pro-Zionism. So you could all day long say, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm not anti-Semitic.
I'm anti-Zionist.
I'm anti-Zionist. So then what we saw with October 7th is that Band-Aid, that whatever disguise was peeled off, and that really they're one and the same thing.
They sure
and
are.
That's why we've seen the conservative right split, between those that are pro-Israel and those that are against. And all of those facade, all that stuff's being stripped away. And I find what's interesting now with the United Nations is that all the nations that are speaking out against Israel and trying to divide the land, they themselves are going through these massive land divisions. Canada, you've got the western provinces of Alberta and Manitoba looking to break away. And if they break away, because they're so tired of the government there in eastern Canada and Ottawa, that, I mean, they're on very, very close to breaking away. The United Kingdom is going through all kinds of turmoil with their own Islamic populations there. I sent you the tweet that Israel recognized Great Britain as a Palestinian state, and there's not a lot of truth in that.
Check them.
And then France, all the unrest and the protests and the riots and everything going on with France. It's all throughout Europe and all these countries that have been trying to divide the land of Israel. They themselves are getting all these same things. And look at the United States; it's been reversed. Trump says, "I'm going to stand with Israel. I want to divide the land." In a reporter had asked him why the change, what happened with the Abraham Accords. He goes, well, October 7th was a change. That changed everything. So
that's right.
So right now we've had 4 months now with zero, illegal immigrants coming through the borders and stuff. I mean, it's been a huge change, and you can see how you can see it in real time. God blessing those nations that bless Israel, and those that are cursing Israel, feeling the repercussions of that.
I can't forget the time that Trump, early on in his second term, said, you did not need Congress to pass laws. All you needed was a new president to stop the immigration. And here we are. So, but you're right. Since October 7th, 2023, things have changed. And I think I've been to Israel 3 times since that war broke out. And the feeling I get when I talk to people is that the trust is gone. They had, like Kibbutz Be'eri in the south, where that was attacked by Hamas, the big attack on that kibbutz, and many others around, and the Nova Festival. I go there every time. We'll take our group, in a few weeks there as well. When you go there, you talk to Israelis, and they used to take some of those Palestinians they would come across the border and be gardeners. They would fix things around the house, like what do you call it? Somebody would fix little things in the house. Handyman. They would be handyman. They would be gardeners. They would be. They would take them and say, "You need a doctor's visit. Let me take you to the doctor today." They would really treat them like the way people treat people.
Yeah.
And that is all gone. That trust is gone. And I was doing with Brendan Holthouse. I think it was March of 24 when we went. And we had the privilege of going to Caroline Glick's home and interviewing her, which was great. And
She's awesome.
At one point, I will never forget what she said. She said pretty much the 2-state solution is a euphemism for the final solution.
Yeah.
Final solution being a reference to what happened with Hitler and the Nazis in World War II, with the 6 million Jews murdered in the camps. Of course, one of them being my grandfather, Maurice Wanzweig, who died in Auschwitz. It's just one of the 6 million. And so she's right. I mean, is there any other option? I was writing an article a couple days ago and I changed the title, but I was going to call it Two State, One State, or No State. What's the solution? What is the solution?
Well, the solution for Israel is annexation of Judea and Samaria, because when you
that's a big deal.
When the old saying is true. I mean, if your quarry goes to ground, leave no ground to go to. So if you leave them no land to carve up, what are they going to do? They're going to say, we still want a Palestinian state. Okay, well, let's carve up some of Jordan. Let's carve up some of the Egyptian territory. Let's carve up some of Lebanon or whatever. And you will see quickly that this issue all dies out almost overnight. The whole idea of a Palestinian state, two-state solution, as soon as it is not in the state of Israel itself, the issue dies. Period. Full stop.
Because it's not about the state; it's about the people.
It's
the Jews. It's satanic. You said
right.
And I agree. It's demonic. It's satanic. It's Satan's attempt at getting rid of the Jews because you said it. I said it a different way. You say he doesn't want to go to the lake of fire. I tell people Satan doesn't like his retirement plan. He's going to retire. He's not going to be the boss of hell. He's going to be in hell. He's going to be one of the first one in the lake of fire.
That's right.
And tormented for the rest of eternity. And he knows that's connected to when Israel, the Jewish people who survived the 7-year tribulation, will say, Baruch haba b'Shem Adonai, blessed is you who comes in the name of the Lord, and that's when Yeshua comes back.
That's right.
And so Satan knows the Bible probably better than the average Christian.
Absolutely.
He knows that when the Jews call upon Jesus, Yeshua, that's the second coming. Yeah. That's the return of Yeshua with those who were raptured. And that is the final campaign of Armageddon and the establishment, the inauguration of the Messianic kingdom. And Satan is bound into hell.
Yep.
But he's released at the end for a little bit.
Yep.
That always bugs me.
I know. And we don't know how long that is exactly. Some folks think it's going to be a very short period of time. I don't know if it's 2 to 3 years. It could be. We don't really know.
Why do you think he's being released? I think Andy was talking about that at the conference that we just finished doing.
Yeah, because you got to think about it. So after the kingdom age is inaugurated, and whoever survived the tribulation, both Jew and Gentile, I think the Jews would be in the majority at that point, going into the kingdom age, they're going to be able to repopulate in the earth, and the earth's going to be restored back to almost Edenic-like states. So everywhere in the world is going to be inhabitable, like the Antarctic, Sahara deserts. All those places will be fertile farmlands and just lush forest and things like that. It'll be completely livable, and the world's population could go up to somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 billion. But all those people that come into life during the kingdom age, they still have to make that decision to serve Yeshua, the Messiah, the King, ruling on the throne of David in Jerusalem, physically ruling there in the world.
And they will not be in their glorified body.
And they will not.
We will be coming back from heaven.
They will not be. Yeah. So they will repopulate the world, but they're still going to be born with those sin natures. So at the end of the age, there's still going to be a decision to make who they're going to follow. And when they're given a little bit of temptation with the form of Satan being released, we're going to quickly see this massive army that is referred to like Gog and Magog. They're going to come from the four corners of the earth, not four little corners in a flat earth or anything like that. I'm just meaning like from all the directions.
Thanks for clarifying that.
The four cardinal directions. And they will march against Israel. They'll encircle the city there, and Christ will destroy them almost instantly. So the battle will be very short. It'll be over before they know it. And then the great white throne judgment begins. There's going to be all of those who will stand before Christ as either their Lord or their Creator. And those that are judged will be cast into the lake of fire along with Satan. And he will go and join the false prophet and the Antichrist, who's already been there for 1,000 years. So, yeah, Satan does not like his retirement plans, and he will do everything that he knows it's real. That's why this is so severe, and this is why this anti-Semitism and the rage and the hate and the murder and the violence is so... It is not going to stop. It's not going to let up, because Satan knows where he is going is real. He knows Bible prophecy is real, and he is terrified of it.
And he probably also knows that he's running on fumes right now.
That's right.
He doesn't have much time left.
That's right.
So he's pulling everything. He's pulling every
All the
stop.
stops. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting. You're talking about the people coming back. In a kingdom, and then with the white throne judgment, and then we get into the eternal order. As we do this program, I'm reminded that we are actually. We're recording it. Friends, we're recording this on Rosh Hashanah. So, hey, maybe this will not end. Maybe we could, if the video keeps going, but then we disappear, you know where we are, the rapture, but don't hold your breath. I did a program with Tom Hughes last week just on the rapture and Rosh Hashanah, because we do one every year, because there's always that
Hype.
that hype. But on Rosh Hashanah, I just had a friend come to our house this morning, give us a card for Rosh Hashanah, and in the card it said, "May you be inscribed in the book of life." Sometimes it's or it says, "May you be inscribed for a good year." This is the greeting that we give each other in a Jewish community, and I just want to remind you watching that you do want to be inscribed, Jew or Gentile. You do want to be inscribed, but not in the book of life, not in the books that Jewish people believe are open between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur as the book of the in-between, or the book of the righteous. Definitely not the book of the wicked, which is why we try to mend our differences between those 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur.
Yeah.
But you want to be inscribed in the Lamb's book of life. That's where your name goes in. It cannot be erased. It cannot disappear. That assures you eternal salvation, that assures you citizenship in heaven and eternal abode in the presence of the Almighty God. And that's what you want. That's the only book that matters at the end of the age, right?
Amen.
So now we're talking about this recognition of Palestine. How binding is this vote right now?
It's not. Without the United States in the Security Council, basically blessing off on it. And that's why I think it's a fascinating time we live in, because had Trump not turned his head just a little bit on July 11th, 2024 in Pennsylvania, if he had not just turned his head just a little bit, we would not be in this situation right now. Either Kamala Harris or Tim Walz or somebody would be there, and they would either abstain from the vote, or they would vote along with the world in permanently dividing the land. So God's hand is still orchestrating, just like it says in Daniel 2, in Acts 17, that God sets the times and the boundaries. He raises up the leaders and it takes them down. And I think that Trump survived everything that he did just for this moment where he is standing out and standing with the nation of Israel, if for nothing else, to give us, the world, a little bit more time for those to come to Christ. To find salvation, because God's long-suffering. He doesn't want anybody to go to hell, and he'll do whatever he can, apart from breaking his own word, to bring people into eternal life through Jesus Christ.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with that. Now, you mentioned something. You said, BB is probably going to have to annex the area that most people call the West Bank, which is really known as Judea and Samaria.
If anything, it should be called the East Bank of Israel.
That's right. Yeah. Well, the West Bank of Jordan.
The West Bank of Jordan.
East Bank of Israel. Right. It's they got all confused, but it's Judea, Samaria. I was there last August, and we met with a farmer, a settler. I mean, he has a farm. He was on a piece of land that he owns that's about 80,000 acres. That's a big piece.
Yeah.
Okay, and he was building a farm, with his house and barns and all the different buildings. And from there, maybe a little settlement down the road, like later. But he was building, and we met with this group of gentlemen who started this business of installing sensors. Fascinating story. Installing sensors and cameras all over the settlements and all over Judea, Samaria, to protect the farmers from theft of their cattle, for burning the land, or from coming at night and shooting them. And since October 7th, it's been going on since October 7, 2023. And so we have this, and I did a video explaining that, but it's being produced right now, so it's not published yet. And so I was in Judea, Samaria, and I asked the gentleman, one of the three who started this business, I said, so this guy is building here, but what do we see in the horizon? He goes, well, you see over there, that's an Arab village. You see over there, that's another Arab village. And you're looking at maybe 15, 20 homes, very rudimentary, concrete homes, but they come in, they pop up like mushroom, and they call it theirs. And he said, if we don't stop that,
Yeah.
eventually, it will all be Arab villages everywhere. They take over. It spreads like a cancer. Yep. And it's not against the people. I don't want to be called a racist. The Arabs, people call them Palestinians, the Arabs, they need to be freed from the claws of Islam, from the prison of Islam, from the false teaching of Islam. They need Yeshua, Jesus, as much as the Jews, as much as anybody who is lost. I'm not actually, I have said it before. I am Islamophobic. I fear Islam. That's what it means, the phobia of Islam. But guess what, friends? This is not about a race. It's about an ideology. Yep. The Arabs, I have no problem with them. I have Arab friends. I have a quote-unquote Palestinian Arab friend in the old city in Jerusalem. And I buy all my jewelry for my wife. And I take people there all the time. He's a dear friend. I bring his little boy presents whenever I come. We're friends. I am not looking. This is not racism. This is I have the fear. I have salvation in Yeshua, so I don't have a fear of death. But I do fear Islam because it's an ideology that is so pervasive and so dangerous, even in America. But that's another topic. Maybe we can do another show on the pervasive infiltration of Islam all over the planet. But this farm in Judea, Samaria was looking for security and safety. So do you really think that Bibi is going to do that no matter what, or is he going to? Because we have the Israel has to refrain and control. It's always like, respond in kind. It's like on October 8th, they said, respond in kind. So was it like are we supposed to maim and rape 1,200 people? Is that what you want us to do?
Yeah, I think
double standards.
Yes, Netanyahu is threading a very careful line here. And what's interesting to me is I was on with Jan Markell years ago. I think it was 22 or 21. And I was so certain that Israel was going to strike Iran at that time. I said, it's got to happen by the spring. Well, then nothing happened. Things happened, right? Russia invaded Ukraine, and then, events happened in between there. There's little skirmishes, going back and forth with Hezbollah and other places. But I was so sure then that it was going to happen. But Israel has demonstrated this supernatural level of patience and careful planning. And so what happened when October 7th happened, I thought, oh, for sure they're going to go in. But they waited and they waited and they waited for the right time. And when they did strike, man, it was like a lightning bolt wrapped in a tornado, shrouded in a typhoon, moving in a Cat 5 hurricane. I mean, it was like a storm.
What about the tsunami?
And it's riding the waves of tsunami, and it was so it was so just jaw-droppingly
in and out.
Well, I mean, look at what they did with Hezbollah, with the pagers, within the walkie-talkies, with the strikes in Iran, with everything they've done to the Houthis and the Hamas. I mean, it has been. This is the stuff that military historians would study. If we were going to be here for another, 100 years before, without Christ coming. Right. This is the kind of battles and wars that the strategists and the tacticians would be studying and looking at exactly how they executed these. These have been some of the most precise and successful military strikes in human history.
And Israel really doesn't go by the standards of conventional warfare.
And they can't. They can't afford to.
But it's damn if you do, damn if you don't.
Yeah.
The finger is pointed at them no matter what.
Well, I meant with so in terms of the humaneness and how they fight the wars, right. It's unparalleled that they go above and beyond.
Exactly, that's what I meant. Yeah.
But in the terms of how they're going to do it, I mean, there's no other country that's been able. We have not even the best things that the U.S. has done over the last 100 years pales in comparison to the stuff they've executed here in the last.
I mean, you look at and I'm sure you've seen the videos when the pager operation took place. There was one that I just could not believe it. There was this man in a market looking for nuts or vegetables, whatever, as a little square stand with fruit in it, and he's looking for stuff, and all of a sudden his pager explodes, and right next to him, like maybe 3 feet next to him, is a woman who just looked at what happened, untouched.
Yeah.
That is, I mean, in war, when you have war, you have collateral damage. And nobody cares because it's what war is.
It's part of it.
It's part of war, except for Israel. And Israel goes out of their way. And yet they're still accused of being, of committing genocide against Gaza, which I did a whole thing on at the conference on the lies about genocide. And we don't want to get into that.
And just today on X, there was a post of Hamas executing Gazan civilians for taking humanitarian aid without paying the tax to Hamas for that free humanitarian aid and executing these guys in the streets. So
it's and these are the people that we want Israel to sign a peace treaty with and then give land to, so that we can have peace in the Middle East.
Yeah.
This is a big lie. This is a big joke.
And you can't reason with the insane. I mean, by their very nature, you can't reason with that.
Yeah, and I have a different take on this. And we'll wrap up with this final thought. Maybe when I talk about anti-Semitism and that hatred, I tell people, do not call them insane, call them evil, because insanity exonerates responsibility.
That's true.
So that's, to me, they're not insane. We say, we kind of say, a roll of the tongue, we say like, well, this is insane. They're absolutely insane. That's not untrue, but I think they're evil.
Yeah, but you could also be demonically possessed, like the man that in the Gadarenes who Jesus approaches. I mean, people would have thought he was insane, but in truth, he was possessed by legion of demons. So these people, right. I don't want to say these people, but this ideology, Satan was the father of the lies. He was a murderer from the beginning. He's been weaponizing language from the Garden of Eden till today, and he has not changed his tactic in that response. So you can't reason with this pure evil. No. You just have to wipe it out.
Absolutely. Well, I've told you before, friends. I've told you, and I appreciate the support and you watching. This channel is definitely pro-Israel, and my desire, my goal, my prayer right now is that many of you who have been pro-Israel for a long time would now switch, kick it up a notch and get some skin in the game and go from being pro-Israel, continue to be pro-Israel, but now we need to be proactive for Israel. We need to be friendly to Israel. We need to show our love and our commitment to make a difference. Visit the land, reach out to your Jewish friends and tell them, I've got your back, whatever it means. It at times get more and more difficult. Jewish community needs to know they have some of the Christians watching their back. I had a good friend of mine, Pastor Brad, who was at the conference with us last weekend, and I'm picking him up from the airport, and I was almost in tears. A rabbi calls him, and he's on speakerphone, and the rabbi goes, I just want to confirm that your security team from your church will be at my synagogue for Rosh Hashanah. And he said, yes, absolutely, we committed. Brad called the rabbi, introduced himself. That was something that Brandon and Tom and I were discussing. Why don't we encourage Christian pastors to do this thing that I end up calling No Synagogue Left Behind? Catchy name.
Yeah.
And call the rabbi and say, I'm the pastor of so-and-so. We have security at our church for services on Sunday. We don't need it on Friday night. We don't need it on Saturday. We can volunteer some of our people. Let me introduce my team to you. Let's do coffee. And then if you need them, this rabbi on the East Coast in Maryland said, let's meet. And now he was talking to Pastor Brad, and he said, I just want to confirm. And then Brad sent me a picture yesterday of one of the security team on the roof of the synagogue. Volunteers. I mean, that's where it's at.
Yeah,
that's where it's at.
That's what it's coming to.
And you want to show your love of Israel. You want to show then skin in the game. Do something, because that will open doors for the gospel. No question about it. Because that we do it because the Bible tells us to bless Israel, and it's the right thing to do. Well, friends, thanks for watching. Pete, we got to do more shows.
Absolutely.
But we got to start somewhere. So now that you're in the area and I might see you more often, we'll have you on the show on a regular basis. Again, thanks for watching. Subscribe if you have not. Thank you for your support. There is a QR code for you to donate to our ministry, and I will put all the ways you can get a hold of Pete in the description. Until next time, shalom and be blessed.